Well, let's dive straight into our topic this morning. Are you a micromanager or a macro manager? Do you look at the small picture or just the bigger picture? Elon Musk kicked this one off. He described himself not as a micromanager, but as a nano-manager. Let's hear from him now. This is him describing the time a couple of years ago when the Tesla Model 3 production was just ramping up and the company was on the brink of bankruptcy.
I lived in the Fremont and Nevada factories for 3 years, fixing that production line, running around like a maniac, living with the team. I slept on the floor so that the team who was going through a hard time could see me on the floor, that they knew that I was not in some ivory tower.
What do you make of that?
Listen, in my opinion, it's a really fine balance. Is it, are you passionate and are you encouraging your team to push the envelope, or are you making them feel they've got to walk around on eggshells? And the key to it, Richard, in my opinion, is trust. If you've got your colleagues' trust, then you can push it a little bit more. You can do a little bit of nano-management without them feeling that, you're just preaching, because theory is an awful lot harder than practice.
Well, David has written in and agrees with you, and he makes the example of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And when asked about their relationship, Bill Gates replied, "The man can't code, the man can't program." And Jobs replied, "Yes, but I've hired the very best people to do that, and I trust them." And David concludes, macro management wins over micromanagement, but only if you have the right teams respect and reward them.
Yeah, I think if your team know where your company's driving, and that's such an easy statement to make, but in so many cases, if you were to poll the people in your company, do they know exactly where you're trying to get to? Do you have any short-term objectives? Do you have long-term objectives? So, one of the things I did at the end of last year, we were close to our target. We weren't quite there. We needed to make that little extra bit of a push. And so I was out on the floor. I was coffee boy for a day. I was an accounts receivable. Apologies to all my staff for the terrible coffee on that occasion. But, it really helped me learn a little bit both about what their jobs were, and also, actually, I was meeting customers as well and hearing it from a different perspective, because sometimes in our gilded tower, we don't hear things as real as they are. So once I'd done that, I was then perhaps a little bit more able to be a bit more demanding and get, inspire people. And Richard, you and I both love the same football team, which isn't doing too well at the moment. The difference between outrageous success and total failure very often is tiny. So, how do you succeed in a diet? How do you become a better paddle tennis player? You push yourself. And I think the role of a boss is to try and inspire. And if we try and be too collaborative, then, I don't think we can inspire and drive as much as possible.
It's funny, you mentioned football. I was back in Manchester this weekend watching the other team, Manchester City, their 5-0 victory. We had a walk around the pitch beforehand, and Pep Guardiola, the manager of Manchester City, it would seem as a nano-manager, because they were explaining that for a Premier League football pitch, you can be between 20 millimetres of grass or 30 millimetres of grass. And Pep wants it to be as short as possible to make the ball go as fast as possible. So he's always pressing the groundsman, "I want 20 millimetres." And they say, "Pep, it's just not possible." "Okay, well, I have 21. And they said, "No, we'll do 22, but below that, the pitch is going to disintegrate."
Yeah, and there was an article about our new manager, Man United's new manager, the same thing. I think they judge a manager now by how short he wants the grass. So there you can become too obsessed with something. It's balance, isn't it?
Well, it's balance, I guess, when you've got a business of maturity and scale like you have. But I guess in the early days of Virtuzone, you were doing everything, weren't you? Because you were a startup. I mean, you didn't start with a team of 100, did you?
Yeah, I have the huge advantage over most people of having made many more mistakes than they have, and occasionally learning from them. But yeah, you're right. You've got to have the strength of your conviction at the beginning. And, there's what I would call classic old style management. Be careful of that. I think we also need to be aware that there are changing times. So what worked really well 10 years ago might simply not be the case anymore. Could Sir Alex Ferguson still exist in today's modern football world? It's questionable.
Let's get another perspective on this. Ibrahim Mougharbel is Managing Director of the Great Place to Work Institute in this region. Joins us now live on Microsoft Teams. Morning, Ibrahim.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the conversation. You say a little bit of nano-management isn't always a bad thing.
Yes, so from our perspective, we believe in employees' experience, and we need to be elevating that employees' experience. And for us to be able to do that, it's not just about the top management and the CEO and the board. It's about the people. It's about the people manager. So they need to be working together with the top management to improve the employee experience, because this is what will impact performance and trust. So from our perspective, we believe that if you're driven by your employees' experience, you will be able to get there. So if you're able to do it on your own, well done. If you cannot do it on your own and you need support, this is where you need to step in and give that support and give that push to the managers to be a great manager and to be the best manager and to be a high-performing and a high-trust organization as well by default.
In your experience, is there much of a difference between businesses that are run by the owner-managed businesses, as opposed to large corporations where the managers are simply professional managers?
This is a great question. We always get asked this question because we work with all type of organization, from an organization who have 50 people to an organization who have 26,000 people. And there's always a question, is it fair to be comparing these two type of organization? Again, going back to what I said in the first statement, it's all about employees' experience. It doesn't matter if you have 10, 50, or 26,000 employees. If you have a company which is driven by your people, it doesn't matter where do you stand in terms of size. Definitely, when you're smaller, it's easier because you are able to interact and you're able to bring the puzzles together. With larger organizations, you have to be dependent of your managers. This is why we believe that managers play a key role in the trust and performance of any organization. If the managers don't enable that, even if you have best practices and you have global practices, it doesn't matter. It's all about the managers who are going to help you to get there. And this is why some companies come to us and say, Ibrahim, I don't understand, why do we have 3 departments? We have a marketing team who's doing really well. We have the finance team who's not doing well, or. So how can you help us with that? And it's not just about blaming HR. It's not about blaming the CEO. Sometimes you need to understand where the gap is. Sometimes you do have best practices, but you don't have the implementation of that practice. And this is why you need to go back to that manager and to make sure that he has the best practices and he's actually implementing them as well.
Ibrahim, first thing I want to say is I love the title of your business, Great Place to Work. So tell us a little bit about when someone walks in your office, what vibe do they see there?
From our perspective, we try our best to focus on our people and on our people experience as well. We need to make sure that it's a great place to work for all without any exception. We need to assess and see if your organization is one. From what I heard, I think you are. So we would love to certify you as a great place to work. We believe that it should be a great place to work for all without any exception. And this is how we're driven globally. We are the global authority for workplace culture, and we are driven with the methodology of creating a better world by focusing on employees, on having a better experience.
Yeah, Branson turned it around, didn't he? So he said the employee comes first, and I guess that's true.
Ibrahim, great talk to you. Appreciate your time this morning. That's the voice of Ibrahim Mougharbel, the Managing Director of the Great Place to Work Institute here in the region.